I had this experience of waiting for the devil to like manifest in the room in a plume of fire and tell me I was damned to hell. Even though I don't even believe in the devil, there was such a strong ingraining through my upbringing about this being sin that I was waiting for him to show up. So one of the things I like to do before I do anything sacred is I like to offer up some incense to help create some nice energy and clear the space. So I talk about this as being sacred, and I think that's a really nice way to introduce how I view my coming out story, which is quite a bit of a sacred journey. It's a journey about coming from disconnection and separation from my intrinsic self to integration and coming home to feeling like I really belong inside and outside. So I graduated from high school and I was totally sexually inexperienced. I went to a gifted program. I was with the same 30 nerds, myself included, for every class all 4 years. And we were all celibate, we were all sober, none of us drank, none of us ever hooked up. And so I didn't feel too weird about not experimenting sexually throughout high school. But then of course getting to college is a totally different experience. Now for me in college, part of me really hoped that somebody would just like rip me out of my turtle shell and force me to go experiment sexually and romantically. But that didn't really happen. Early on in my freshman year, I remember going to one of my very first parties, and I didn't go to very many parties at all during my 4 years of university. But this was a music theater party, and that evening I remember getting to do a body shot off of this really attractive woman's belly, and there was a game that was being played where you get tied to a chair and blindfolded, and a couple people come and kiss you, and you have to like rate who is your favorite. So that was about as much adventure as my collegiate sexual experiences ever got. I kicked it off with a bang and pretty much plateaued there. Now, during those 4 years, I did ask out 3 women. All of them were very popular girls in the theater program. I kind of knew probably that I was setting myself up for failure, at least on a subconscious level. One of them laughed in my face when I asked, so that was cute. The second one said yes, but apparently she was really drunk, and the next day she said she didn't remember and then wasn't interested. And then the third one actually pursued me. We went to go see a play together, showed up 5 minutes before curtain, sat through the one-act play. As soon as it was done, she said, "Okay, this was fun, bye," and then left. So I didn't know if she was making fun of me or she changed her mind. It was really weird. My sophomore year, I had a roommate who is closeted, at least bisexual. I thought he was gay. I don't know. I haven't followed up with him. And I kind of forced him to start to dig into that and try to make himself face his buried sexuality. Now, of course, the ironic thing was, I didn't even see it about myself. I didn't realize I was the one who needed to come to terms with his buried sexuality. Because even from a younger age, I knew that I was attracted to male physiques, male bodies, much more than female bodies. But 2 things. One is I believed I just wanted to look hypermasculine. I just want to have the giant muscles and feel like this hypersexualized man. And the second thing was, male sexuality always sounded a bit like the tooth fairy to me. There was this randy little fairy godmother sprinkling horny dust on teenage boys, and one day you would wake up and suddenly be like, "Oh, I'm aroused by that lady over there." It was always sounded like it was this gift you were bestowed, that one day you would wake up and find girls attractive. And so I just thought, maybe the fairy missed me, or she's coming, she's on her way, she's delayed. That was not the case. And the older and older I got, the more I realized maybe there's something wrong with my understanding about sexual burgeoning. Maybe there is no horny god fairy waiting to splash me with some sexual dust. So I graduated college, still celibate, still never having hooked up with anyone. And by this point, I was neck deep in my yogic practice. I ended up moving right into an ashram where I'd have to be at meditation class every morning at 5 o'clock. I would have to be at meditation class every evening if I wasn't at the theater performing. I had to do selfless service all day long if I wasn't working And so it really inhibited my ability to go out and date and try things and experiment, which was okay by me. I think that was actually part of the reason I sought it out, was that it protected me from those explorations and having to dig deeper, because I so desperately wanted to be straight. My goal in life, more than anything, was to be a successful actor. For me, that equated with having to be heterosexual, because if I wanted to be a leading man, that meant that I had to be somebody who could believably be seen as being a romantic interest. Gay wasn't an option. As I settled into my early to mid-20s, I started to identify as asexual. I was just like, you know what? I'm just really not that into anyone. Yeah, I like looking at pictures and videos on screens, but I don't really feel any connections in real life. Maybe there's just something wrong with me. And I very much continued into that vein of maybe there's something broken and I just don't desire people, until I was 24. Around this time, I got cast in my first lead role in a romantic comedy feature film.
You guys think it's nuts, right?
Well, he's known the girl for 2 weeks.
To get married, that's their whole agenda.
No, they don't. You guys are sticking versions of women that are your moms. And not even your mom actually wanted to get married.
You say my mother didn't love my father?
They're divorced, aren't they?
Would you sleep with me?
Yeah, I would.
It's not a great movie, but you can find it on Amazon. And in it, I played a gay character. He was one half of a happily partnered couple, and I would have to be romantic with another man on screen.
My session tomorrow just got pushed back an hour.
Oh, that warrants a smile.
Oh, you are jealous.
Now, I had played gay characters before, but they'd always been very shticky. They'd always been over the top and for a joke. And this was the first time I would have to connect with somebody in earnest. And I knew at that point in my acting career that in order for something to read as being earnest on screen, there'd have to be legitimate chemistry. So I was very grateful that the casting team of the film let me sit in on final callbacks when they were casting my co-star, and they made sure it was somebody with whom I felt very, very comfortable. This man and myself ended up having several heart-to-heart conversations in the nights before we began shooting. He opened up to me about his experiences as an out gay man, his feelings of confusion during his coming out process, and he made me feel safe and welcomed. At this point, I had been meditating for several years, and there were already cracks forming in my identity, cracks in who I thought I was and who I needed to be, so it started to allow me to ask certain and deeper questions. And then I remember there was one night on set in particular. He and I had a little scene between the two of us in our apartment. It was very tender, it was very romantic, it was very cuddly. And I walked away from one of the shots to go get some water, and I realized I was emotionally and physically turned on. And that was the first time I could ever say that about another person. And so it made me think, there's something here, I need to unpack this. Flash forward a couple weeks, and I'm spending more time with a friend of mine from the second city. We're in an ensemble performing together, and besides being an actor and improver, he is also a pickup artist and a neo-tantra practitioner. During our hangouts, he and I get on the topic of sex and sexuality, and he convinces me that I need to try something. I'm 25 years old at this point, still a virgin, and it's time to give something a go and see how I respond. So he coaches me on all of this. He sets me up with some workshops with some friends of his who run a Tantra center in Chicago. After one of our visits, I head back home to the ashram. One of my friends is working at the dining table, and I'm like, I'm gonna be all cool. I'm feeling all like worked up. I know how to make this happen. I'm gonna go and try and seduce her. So I go slide into the table next to her, offer her a foot massage. She accepts. I extend that into an invitation back to my room. She says yes. The next thing I know, we are embracing each other on my bed and going at it. And I remember feeling proud because I was mildly turned on, but I also knew that it wasn't working, it wasn't right. There was something just kind of off. We mutually agreed after about 10 minutes of heavy petting. She left. I went and took a long shower. And when I came out of the shower, she turned her laptop toward me and said, "Hey, I'm setting you up a dating profile in OkCupid. I want you to try it, and I'm gonna list you as bisexual." And for me, that was a bit of a terrifying moment, like thinking, oh my gosh, bisexual? Because of this experience on screen, I was like, okay, there's obviously something there. Okay, this terrifies me. This goes against everything I wanted for my life, but maybe I should try it. I said, okay, fine. go ahead and set me up on a couple dates. I'm too nervous to try to flirt with anybody. Over the next couple months, I ended up going on several dozen first dates. Most of them were just coffee, long walks, chatting. I went on dates with both men and women. Realized that I was feeling more connection to men, but still felt some connection to women. I still hadn't tried hooking up with anyone besides just kissing. And so I thought, okay, the next person I go on a date with that I feel safe with, I need to do something more than just kissing. I want to take it to the next level. I had a date set up with a very handsome actor who had just moved to Chicago from Los Angeles. He was tall, handsome, we had a lot in common. We had a beautiful dinner, ended up going for a 2.5-hour walk after that. I was very open about my confusion and my limited experiences. And I invited myself back to his apartment. And he said yes. And I remember as we walked down the hallway leading to his door, I felt the world spinning. Like gravity had lost its hold on me. It was spinning and floating and falling, and it felt like a roller coaster ride to know that finally something was going to happen. We went into his apartment, we made out, told him I wanted to get naked. We got naked. We played around for about 15 minutes. Didn't have sex, didn't do anything terribly explicit apart from just touch each other. And then I said, okay, this is great, thank you, I need to go. When I walked out of his home, I remember feeling like my world had exploded, like there was this avalanche of collected debris of who I thought I was and who I needed to be that was just falling off in large cracked plates. We had already set up a second date for the next night to go see a play. I was head over heels. And I'm sure this is a very common experience, especially if you've been as repressed as I was for so many years, to finally have somebody touch you and hold you and to connect skin to skin. And on top of that, they were a gentlemanly person. They were a very kind soul, very thoughtful, very lovely. I went gaga. I was like, blah. And this person was, I think, 38 years old at this time. I was 25, and they were like, what is going on for you? We met up once more 2 days after that second date, walked along the river during his lunch break and kissed a little bit. But my emotions were so intense that he was like, you need to back that off. He stopped replying to my text messages, and my heart broke. I remember I was dropping off a friend after a play when I got that text message saying, I don't want to talk to you anymore. And as I hopped on the expressway to go back to the ashram at 1 o'clock in the morning, I felt this bellows open up inside of me. And I screamed, I roared in a way I didn't know was possible, that I've never seen another human do, that I've never done before or since. It felt like this column of air opened up from my groin to the top of my head. And I screamed and screamed and screamed until there was nothing left, until my voice was raw. And I got home, I went to bed, and the next morning I woke up as sick as could be. Like I had the worst flu. I stayed in bed for the next 10 days writing really bad poetry and watching gay romantic comedies, trying to get over this. And it fucked me up. Like, it fucked me up for several years. For like the next 3 years, I could not drive or travel within like a half-a-mile radius of that apartment that he lived at without weeping uncontrollably, like just bursting into tears. So you would think, having such a profoundly strong reaction to this, that it would make it clear that probably predominantly attracted to men. Even with this response, I was still very confused because of all my years of repression and my years of not wanting to be gay. So I continued to go on dates with both men and women. And about 6 months after that, I went on a date with the man who would become my first boyfriend. He and I met at a coffee shop for tea for our first date. I was texting with both him and a friend as I was waiting for him to walk in. And as he entered, I thought I was texting my friend saying, oh my gosh, he just arrived, he's super cute. And I mistakenly sent it to him, which he then informed me of after the date ended. He was charming, again, gentlemanly. He was British, and I loved his accent. Worldly, educated, been so many places, traveled throughout the year. I had a lifestyle that was very appealing to me. I didn't realize at that time how emotionally we were not compatible, though. and that we were at different places very much and wanted different things. And I wanted vulnerability, I wanted intimacy and connection, and that was just not something that he could offer. But he offered experiences and a lifestyle that was new and fascinating, and we met in February, and I think within a month we had decided to date exclusively. And then he was the first man I ever had sex with. And I remember the first time we had sex thinking, that was it? This is what people make such a big deal about and legislate about and picket signs about how offensive gay sex is? I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, this was beautiful and sacred and lovely, and why would anyone ever hold fault to this? Simultaneously, I also had this experience of waiting for the devil to like manifest in the room in a plume of fire and tell me I was damned to hell. Even though I don't even believe in the devil, there was such a strong ingraining through my upbringing about this being sin that I was waiting for him to show up. I'm like, oh, you hanging in the corner over there, Beelzebub? You hanging out in the closet, Mr. Lucifer? Because I feel like I should be damned, even though I felt like this was beautiful. My people in the world would tell me I've been doing something bad. But it felt beautiful and sacred. And that man, he was the first person to ever tell me that he loved me. He was the first person to ever tell me that he found me so beautiful and didn't ever want me to leave. I remember feeling so in love. That Easter Sunday, I publicly came out. I wrote a message on Facebook saying, I'm coming to realize that I'm gay. I'm having trouble accepting it. The reason I said that is because I actually had to write myself a letter, analytically going through every sexual feeling or experience I'd had since I was a little boy, in order to kind of put everything in perspective. And I was so confused and so detached from myself, I had to go to logical reasoning to prove it. And when I got to the end of the letter chronicling my experiences, I wrote, in reflection, since over 90% of my experiences and feelings have been related to men, I think it is a fair assumption that I therefore must be gay. My parents had a hard time with it. Despite me galloping down the hallway as a kid in Dorothy's ruby slippers, my mom didn't expect it. My dad didn't really want to talk about it. It took my mom probably a good 4 years before she really came around, and it took a lot of me pushing her buttons and being open and being vocal about my experiences and sharing it with the world. She's in a good place now, but it took her a long time. In July, I took my boyfriend to Yellowstone National Park. I was very excited. He had planned these expensive trips for me that I couldn't afford to reciprocate. So I thought, let's do something not as expensive, but go somewhere awesome that you've never been. So I arranged a couple lodges, I arranged camping sites, and in the middle of our trip, he broke up with me. Told me that I wasn't what he wanted, that I was a little too spiritual, a little too open for him. And I remember being devastated. We had sex later that night in our tent, and I told him how I can't believe you wouldn't want to fight for me. You wouldn't want to fight to make it work. He said that his biggest reason was just he couldn't be at the level of openness that I needed. But the next morning, he said he wanted to make it work. Let's keep going with this, and that he promised to be more vulnerable, to share what was really going on with him, to be more authentic. I said, okay. We dated for another 5 weeks after that. I kept checking in. Is everything good? Are you fine? He kept saying, yeah, all is good. And then after a beautiful day at market days, dancing in the street together, the next day he showed up at the ashram. Wouldn't even come in. He'd actually never even been inside. I'd always gone to his place. He just said, we're done, and left me there. And I remember it felt really hard for me to not be able to process with him. He didn't want to talk. He didn't want to have anything to do with me after that. And I had to go through that grieving process on my own. I dated a couple other guys after that. A famous classical musician, another actor, a really sweet foreign guy from abroad, but none of them ever felt right. And then I entered a state of despondency. What the F did I do? I mean, I basically gave up on what I wanted for my career trajectory because I'm no longer going to be passing as straight, and I'm not finding any great guys. I'm not really finding anybody that I'm connecting with. I left my OkCupid dating profile online and just said, you know what, I'm tired of looking, I'm done. If someone awesome comes and finds me, great, but otherwise... No. Fortunately, not too long after that, my husband found me, and he became the most important and the most wonderful part of my life, and I'm immensely grateful for his love and support and kindness. But in regards to my coming out journey, I don't feel like my experience ended with the boyfriend or coming out publicly, because I still had a tremendous amount of shame regarding my sexuality and being a sexual man. Even though I went on probably over 100 first dates in my 2.5 years of dating, probably even just in the first year of dating, maybe, I didn't really have sex with people. To this day, I've only ever had penetrative sex with 3 individuals, one of whom is my husband. And so I carried a lot of shame around that. One of the things I've been so grateful for with my husband is his encouragement to come into wholeness and to be the best man I can be. So a week after our wedding, I was in Paris for work. I wanted to go check out some of the gay culture. And he said, yeah, go for it. I told him I wanted to go to a naked gay bar. He said, cool, tell me about your experiences. I told him I wanted to go to a gay bathhouse. He said, great, if you want to hook up with somebody, that's fine with me. Just let me know what you do. And I said, I don't really have the desire, but I want to go and see. And it was such a life-changing experience for me to be surrounded by dozens and dozens of other naked men who were unashamed about their urges and desires and their orientation, and to see them being affectionate and touching and sexual. And it was such a profoundly healing experience for me. It really was a moment that allowed me to start to root into my sexual identity as a queer person. And there I was, feeling all confident about being out and gay, settled into, yeah, I'm just same-sex attracted. And then about a year after that, I was in India for work with one of my dear friends, and she and I were taking some time to travel together apart from our work trip. And when we were in the hotel together in Mumbai, our first night, she was like, we don't have to be weird about changing in front of each other, right? I'm like, no, that's totally cool. She's like, great. And then she proceeded to be naked. Just like butt-ass naked, titties flopping about. I was very turned on. And after 2 days of this, we went to go have brunch, and I said to her, I'm like, okay, so love, I have to have an uncomfortable conversation with you. I am totally okay with nudity, but you should know that I'm not feeling entirely gay in this moment. So I think we need to probably cover up a little bit. And she's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. But if you want to have sex, we could totally do that. I'm like, thank you. Wonderful offer. Maybe we'll take you up on that at some point. I think that's a conversation me and my husband should probably have first. But that experience opened my eyes to this idea of who we think we are is not necessarily set in stone, that it changes with time and experience and the people we interact with. So I started off in my earliest part of life thinking I was straight, and then asexual. And then when I started dating, I thought maybe I was bisexual. Then I came out as gay. Now I've been enjoying the term omnisexual, meaning that I'm attracted to different genders and different bodies for different reasons. Because I've learned that any box I start to put myself in, it can change. It can evolve based on where I am, what I need, how are relationships going, how is energy going between me and my primary partner, my husband, how are things feeling otherwise, what are things I haven't explored, what things are coming up from my subconscious, what parts of my shadow side are coming to light. And so I feel like my coming out story isn't ever completed, because I'm always coming out to myself in a new and different way. I'm ever evolving in my understanding of selfhood. And this is why I started this video today by offering incense and saying, this is a sacred journey for me. Because it isn't just a journey about who do I sleep with, who gets me off. It's a journey of knowing who I am and loving and accepting myself in my entirety. Now, I get for a lot of people this sounds strange. How could you have not known sooner? How could you not have experimented more? How can you have these feelings and have these experiences once you're married? There's a lot of things that you could take umbrage at from what I've shared in my coming out story. But I hope the main takeaway that you hear is that no matter who you are, no matter what you're experiencing, no matter how different or confusing or slow to evolve your tale might be, you're not alone. There are others who have gone through something similar. And I invite you to celebrate your story. I invite you to continue to explore and go deeper and better understand yourself with every passing day. The worst thing I could imagine is if I had frozen my identity at an earlier point in time, like 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I would have been miserable. I would have been trapped in a life that was so much less fulfilling than what it is now. And I get that it's hard, and I get that we have the baggage of society telling us we have to be a certain way, and childhood trauma about being bullied for not being blank enough, but we have to come home to ourselves. So thank you for taking the time today to listen to part of my coming out journey. I would love to hear yours. If you feel compelled to share it with me, please shoot me an email at k@ecstaticself.com or leave a comment below. I'd love to hear how your journey has been unfolding. If you enjoyed this video, I share this story and others like it in my upcoming book, Journey to the Ecstatic Self. It's available for pre-order now on Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Kobo, wherever books are sold. And if you know somebody in your own life who is struggling with their coming out journey, please feel free to share it with them. We're all on a path walking together. There is no final destination. We're all just taking some strides together and doing the best we can. And it's an honor to journey with you.